At the start of the week, I thought it'd be a really fun idea to ask my Instagram followers, who also happen to be podcast listeners, if they had any questions that they might like to ask me for this episode. Hi, I'm Jo Clark, and thanks so much for joining me today. This is the Redefining Midlife podcast, a podcast designed for the 40-plus woman who is determined to challenge society's myths and beliefs around midlife. It's for the woman who is inspired and ready to define midlife her way. Join me each week as I chat to health and wellness experts for up-to-date information on how to live well as some special conversations with incredible everyday women redefining what midlife can look like. Here's to making our next half of life even better than the first. Welcome back to the Redefining Midlife podcast and to episode 99. Now, in this episode, I'm going to be giving you a short update and a reflection of the podcast before answering just a number of listener questions. Now, as we all know, a lot can happen in a very short amount of time. And in just 2 years, this little podcast has grown from firstly just an idea to then taking that step of recording and hitting publish on the first episode to now recording episode number 99. Now, this show in 2 years is in the top 5% of podcasts globally, with listeners in 63 countries and counting. Blows my mind. This podcast mightn't have the millions of downloads of others, or the hundreds of thousands of listeners, or a celebrity sitting behind the microphone interviewing other celebrities or other well-known women. It doesn't have the backing and the sponsorship to pay for the production or the promotion. It isn't used to sell products, or it's not controlled by any advertisers. Instead, it just has a growing number of loyal listeners who are incredibly supportive. Listeners like you. And it only has me behind the microphone, someone who is definitely not a celebrity. But I'm always learning and I'm willing to continue to create more episodes because, well, to be honest, I've got a lot more to say. But there's also such a wealth of great research and information that we as midlife women need to hear. And there are so many more stories to share from amazing everyday women who make this world a better place. Women out there who can show us that there are so many possibilities that we have in this stage of life. Now, I fund this podcast myself. I do all my own research. I find the guests. I handle all the admin and the recording, and I promote the podcast. I'm helped along by my editor, Linda Bonney, who, since the very first episode, has put every single episode together and she busily cuts out all the bloopers for me. So thanks, Linda. Now, this show's continued success relies on just a few things. Firstly, it's having special listeners like you, listeners who follow the show and tune in each week. Thank you. Secondly, the listeners who share episodes that they know are going to resonate or help other special women in their midlife circle. Thank you. And most importantly, it's the people who are rating and reviewing the show, because this helps that algorithm push the reach of the podcast into the ears of other midlife women. So thank you if you've ever done that. So if you have done any, all, or just some of those things, I am very grateful. It means the absolute world to me, and I appreciate you so very much for taking that time and taking that effort. Now, given this is the episode before my big milestone 100 shows, at the start of the week, I thought it'd be a really fun idea to ask my Instagram followers, who also happen to be podcast listeners, if they had any questions that they might like to ask me for this episode. I got around about 20 or so questions in my DMs, and I've chosen 10. They're a mix of questions about the show and my personal midlife experiences. But even though I saw and I chose these 10 questions, I purposely did this just before I hit record, so I haven't spent much time overthinking them. Okay, question number 1 comes from Diane. What inspired you to start the Redefining Midlife podcast, and has your own midlife journey influenced the podcast? Okay, so yes, what inspired me? Actually, it was what I was going through, my own journey. That actually inspired me, because I knew if I was going through these things and I was speaking to my friends and my circle of women who were going through these things, then so many more women are going through exactly the sorts of things like perimenopause, empty nest, parents who are aging and dying, career issues. There's just so many things that can happen in this stage of life. And it's a stage of life that not many people really openly talk about. Now it's becoming more open, but it's still one of those taboo subjects. And it's great when you've got people that are relatable that you can talk to and you can hear stories from. It's also great to hear from experts who can help us live a better life, and not only for now, but for into our future. Because I was determined that I'm going to have my second half of life be the best half of my life. And if that was the case, then I was going to need a lot of information to help me get there. So as I was finding it, I also wanted to share. I'm a teacher by profession, and in my past life, I did that for over 30 years. And so as a teacher, I love sharing. I love sharing information. I've got a big growth mindset. I love learning. And so I've combined all of those things together. And for me, a podcast was a really great platform for me to be able to do that. I had no idea really what it was going to look like in the early stages, how long it was going to go for. And I must say, I'm pretty proud of myself for it lasting for this long. I also found it hard to find reliable information on different things with regards to our health at this stage of life and how to live well into the future. So I've seen the opposite of what happens if, certain things aren't in place, and I wanted to make sure that that wasn't going to be my story. Then there are so many people that you can find, on socials or just in the general public that have got a vested interest. They're trying to sell you things and supplements. And I knew that that wasn't the way. I am a big believer in science and research, and that there's not a one-size-fits-all approach to this stage of life. So I wanted to get as many different ideas and experts to come on to talk about different areas and different things that could possibly help us. I also found it really hard to find relatable role models. I'm really not interested in celebrities or influencers. I know they, are going through many of these transitions as well, but I find it fairly hard to relate to them because their lives are so very, very different to mine and what I'm imagining a lot of your lives. I wanted to hear the stories of women who are like you and I. So that's really why I started Redefining Midlife. And yes, my own midlife journey has definitely influenced the podcast. So thanks, Diane, for that question. Okay, question number 2 comes from Kate. Kate's question was, what are some of the most memorable moments or episodes from the past, and why do they stand out to you? Ooh. Okay, I don't have the episode numbers for you to go back to, so you might have to do a search amongst all of the shows that we've got so far. But when I get a listener writing to me or sending via an email or sending me a DM on the fact that they've listened to a podcast and they've taken action from what they've learned and it's shown something to them that they wouldn't have known otherwise, that's really powerful. So the one that really comes to mind was the episode I have done with Professor Belinda Beck on our bone density and the importance of having a DEXA scan. I would have had probably about 15 women now, at least. I haven't kept a count, but I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but 15 women who have contacted me personally, saying that after that show, they asked their doctor for a referral to get a DEXA scan, and they've since discovered that they had osteopenia. And, well, 2 of them actually had osteoporosis, and they had no idea. Something like that can make such a difference. Knowing that information has such a difference to what your future can look like. So for me, that's a really powerful story. If I can help, or the information that I share can help just one person, then for me, job's done. It means a lot when a woman has been able to change the direction of her future simply by just doing something that they've heard from the episode. So yes, Professor Belinda Beck was amazing. Professor Anne McGregor, I've had a couple of ladies, she talked about migraines during the menopause transition. A number of ladies have migraines and they found the information there certainly helped them. Dr. Jen Huber talking about the way that we need to rethink food and diet culture. That was amazing. I had great feedback from that. Dr. Karen Coates and Dr. Neve Leonard, who are both GPs who specialise in women's health. A lot of women really appreciated the information that they shared, and they've been able to follow through with some of their recommendations. And then it's just basically what I love, memorable moments for me, is just listening to another everyday woman who is brave enough, firstly, to come on to the podcast to share her story, but they just share experiences that could help another midlife woman, give another lady an opportunity to hear that they're not alone, that they may have shared an experience that was similar, and just to see that there are so many, as I said earlier in the show, so many possibilities for this stage of life. So that's really memorable for me. Okay, our next question is from Belinda. And Belinda said, looking back, what advice would you give your younger self about navigating midlife? Oh, this is probably one I'll reflect on later and think, oh, I wish I would have said that. But basically, what I'm thinking about now, right off the top of my head, is just embrace this stage of life and have a positive mindset. That makes such a big difference. I don't mean be Pollyanna and everything's wonderful and terrific. It's not. It's a shitty time of your life as well. But don't fall for those negative stereotypes and stories. There's so much ageism out there. There's so many, we should look like this, we should be wearing these sorts of clothes, or this should be your path. Do you find the path and you do you, is basically what I say. I would also tell my younger self to prioritize health. That is so important. The younger you can do it and the younger that you can start, the easier it is. It's not all that catch-up time. As Professor Cassandra Zerke, I should say, she mentioned that in her podcast. Yeah, you can start later in life, but you've just got to do a lot more to catch up. Also, I would advise any woman who is younger, particularly those who are in their 30s, to learn about the menopause transition well before that likelihood of you entering perimenopause comes in. So know what the symptoms are and find your own recipe for what that might look like in order for you to support your body through that. So when you know more, you can do more. Knowledge really is power, gives you the opportunities to find what works for you. Okay, question number 4 is from Jane. What challenges did you face along the way and how have you overcome them? I don't know if this is in the context of the podcast or just in general. So I'll go through, I suppose it could be both if I answer it this way. First of all, having some confidence, which isn't always easy, especially when you're going to be doing something new and something different. I certainly am not the only one who will have limiting beliefs or negative stories going through your mind trying to talk you out of something. So it's really having the confidence to override those and having some of the tools and things to give you the steps to just take one, or basically take one little step in front of the other. Just to have the confidence to do one small thing at a time, chunk it out. What other challenges did I have? Yeah, the fact that any change does involve some sort of work and commitment. It's not going to be always easy and you're not going to get success straight away. So good things take time. One other challenge that I found interesting that I wasn't expecting, and I might upset a couple of people here, and apologies if I do, was some of the lack of support or interest that I had from my friends. That actually disappointed me. They weren't interested. They showed very little interest. So it's probably disappointed and surprised me because I'm not that sort of person. I'm always really interested in what people are doing and particularly my friends are doing. And I'm by nature a really supportive person. So yeah, that was a challenge as well. How I overcame that, I suppose I can't be responsible for anybody else's thoughts or behaviours. I'm only responsible for mine. So first and foremost, putting myself first, doing what I need to do to, forward my own career or however that might look. And just put myself first. Okay, question number 5 is from Anna. What have been some unexpected benefits of podcasting? Again, I might talk about this from a personal or professional side of things because I'm not sure if what you were wanting to know as far as benefits go. So I'll add both of those. For me, I mentioned before that I love learning, and the podcast means that every single time that I hit record, whether I'm doing an interview with another woman, an interview with an expert, or it's me actually researching and creating a solo episode, I learn something new every single time. Another one of those benefits is getting out of my comfort zone, getting out there and reaching people, reaching complete strangers and asking them if they would like to be a guest. So it's stretching yourself all the time. And the more that you, I suppose, use that muscle, the easier it gets and the more confidence that you become. So for me, I suppose one of the unexpected benefits was increased confidence, meeting incredible women and women who don't realize just how damn special that they are. Women who take for granted that their life is, they think it's fairly ordinary, but in fact, I think it's quite extraordinary. I love having conversations with super smart and highly accomplished women. I love shining the light on other women and the work that they're doing. Some of the opportunities that I've had from the podcast as well has allowed me to have other speaking engagements or being able to provide workshops for different organizations and businesses. And it's also led me to start mentoring other women in this phase of life. And that is a huge joy for me, helping other women on a one-on-one basis or in a small group setting on how they can, improve their life now and into the future. And the other unexpected benefit, is probably just spreading more positive stories and narratives and sharing information that can help another woman. So when you know that you're helping somebody else, that's pretty damn special in my eyes. Okay, let's have a look at the next question. It's from Melissa. And Melissa had, looking ahead, what are your goals or plans for the next 100 episodes? Ooh, Lordy. Okay, more of the same, I think, as far as the themes go and the sharing of stories. For me, I'll be finding more experts that have got incredible information that can help us. If you've got anybody in your world that you think is pretty special and has a story that they would be willing to share, let me know. I really want to shine a light on all of those other amazing women who are out there. They're the ones who don't have the spotlight on them. So I can put not a huge spotlight, but I can shine a torch on their amazing life and just have their story shared with other women. I suppose, again, another thing that I would like for the next 100 episodes is maybe for the direction of, well, it's probably an outcome more than what my goal is or plan it would be. It's really, I just want the podcast to grow so more women can access this information. The more women that can hear these sorts of things, the better it's going to be for them, their families, and their loved ones. Really, that's all it comes down to. Next question comes from Claire. Claire says, what advice would you give to someone who is thinking about starting their own podcast? Probably don't overthink it. We spend so much time overthinking things that we spin our wheels and go around in circles, or it just makes us stop. So just start. You don't have to have all the fancy equipment or a recording studio. I've bought myself a podcast mic and I sit in my office and I record. So you think you've got to have all of these, amazing bells and whistles, but you don't. There is heaps of free information on the internet. Just do a little bit of research. And well, if you want to know some more information and you're not sure where to start or what's a good site to go to, just message me. I will send you all the information that I know have helped myself and some of my friends who were looking at starting a podcast as well. Okay, question 8 comes from Lisa. What are some key habits you have to stay healthy? A number of years ago, when my health wasn't crash hot, I did all of my research and learned as much as I could, and I discovered what I called my 6 pillars of wellness. Well, I call them myself. I haven't actually discovered these pillars. I've just called them my 6 pillars, and that's what I have in my Better Than Before membership. So I look at things that are important that I know increase the longevity, and they're really basic, simple things. So nutrition, I'm just very aware of not having lots of food that is highly processed and very little sugar in my diet. So a fairly strong plant-based, high-protein diet is important to me. Movement is another pillar. I move my body in some way every day. So that's exercise that I think about, whether it be walking, strength training, yoga, Incidental exercise, going out into the gardens. I'm really very keen on making sure that I've got things like my balance right, my ability to be more agile. I just need to move my body and be very mindful of that. So movement is an important pillar. Stress management, that was an area that I really had to work on, particularly being somebody who was going through quite a lot of stress and burnout from career. That was really important that I focused on that and learn strategies and have a toolkit of different things that I can use at different times when things were getting a little bit out of control. Sleep and rest. God, we all know how important sleep and rest is. And when you don't get it to get enough sleep or rest, your body really feels it. So for me, prioritizing that. And again, for me, I had lots of months, and probably when I think about it, probably years of broken sleep simply due to night sweats. So for me, it was going on hormone replacement as well. That really helped my sleep. The other one is purpose and connection, just how important it is to have connection with the people that we love and people that we don't know. Just to have that human connection is so important, and it adds years to your life. It's an easy one to do. The other one, that when I put purpose and connection together, have a sense of purpose. Now, a sense of purpose might be just getting up every day and putting one foot in front of the other. It can change over time, and I know my sense of purpose has definitely changed over the last 5-6 years, and I have no doubt that it's going to change again into the future. So, purpose and connection is really important for me, and it's one way I look after my health. And the final pillar that I work on is just looking at supporting my hormones. And I'm not just talking about, going on HRT. I'm just talking about, making sure that I've got lots of all of the dopamine, the oxytocin, the endorphins, all of those really great hormones in my life. And that can give me all of those, as many positive feelings as possible, because that's so important to manage the high stress hormones so they're not overtaking my life, because that's not good for long-term health. And also making sure that I get rid of a lot of the things that are like endocrine disruptors. I'm really big on that as well. Just making sure there's lots of natural products rather than whole chemical fuel. That I've got lots of chemicals going in my body or around my house. So they're the 6 areas that I focus on, and I have really worked hard on those over the last few years. And like I said, that's what I work with other women in the Better Than Before membership on that as well. Okay, our second last question is from Sarah. And Sarah said, what advice would you give to women in midlife who are struggling to find themselves again? This is a huge one. There's no one answer. There's no roadmap, as we know, at this stage of life. And there's definitely no one size fits all approach. Our life has changed so much over the decades, and I don't need to tell you that that's been the case, Sarah. I suppose be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And by that, I mean, ask yourself some of the big life questions that you may be avoiding asking, or maybe you've just been too busy to ask yourself, because your dreams, your trajectory is very different to what it was when you were in your 30s and your 40s. When you get into your late 40s and your 50s and your 60s, your life is different. But sometimes you get stuck on that, that treadmill, and you can't get off. So it's really important that you ask some big questions. For me, I worked with a mentor as well to help ask me the right questions, because when I say ask yourself the big questions, you may not know what those are, and they have to be right for you. Some of those ones that make you really look inward. Someone also, having a mentor is someone who can hold a mirror up to you and probably shine a light on some of those areas you may not want to have the light shine on. But if you don't, it's one of those things that if you just spend your life avoiding a certain thing or avoiding something that's uncomfortable, you're really not going to heal, get past that, and get to where you want to be. So I say work with a mentor. It's a process I support other women with. And so if you feel like you ever need mentoring, Sarah, I'm very happy to talk with you about that. Give yourself time and grace. You're going through some big things in midlife, and it can be really messy. So give yourself that time to feel, time to get over things, and that grace. It's not always going to be pretty. And, on those days that aren't so pretty, just cut yourself some slack. And then I suppose think about how special it's going to be when you meet the woman that's going to take you through this next half of life. So always have that little bit of a positive outlook that you're not always going to find things difficult. It doesn't always, what you're going through right now doesn't mean it's what you're always going to be going through. A lot of these transitions don't last forever. And thank goodness for that, I say. All right, final question comes from Emma. And she asked, where do you see yourself in 10 years? Right, we've finished on a big one. Okay, so Emma, 5 years ago, I had no idea that I'd be doing what I'm doing today. I was still actually working in a classroom. I was a classroom teacher. I just moved to a new home in a different part of the state. That was huge. At that stage, my mum was still alive. She was very unwell, but we were still going through all of that happening. I had no idea I'd be living the life that I am living today. So in 5 years, so much can change. What 10 could look like, oh my God, I've got no idea. But I do have dreams of supporting more people. I will say that. I've got dreams of supporting more people as I go through all of those big transitions in midlife. And I can do that through the podcast. I can do that through the workshops and the speaking events and the private mentoring that I have. So that's really special. So that's a dream. Where it takes me, I've got no idea. And that's the exciting part, isn't it, of life, that I've got dreams. I've written them down in various areas of my life. I'm really quite methodical in that. And that's part of the work that I do when I do mentoring. We look at all different parts of life. And for me personally, I do that. And I go through and think about where I want to be or what I want to do, what are my dreams, what are my goals, and then work towards it. But you never know how it's going to turn out. What I might dream of, it could send me in a completely different direction as well. And you don't know sometimes until you start. I really do want to be seen, and this is probably more of an ambition that I have. I really do want to be seen as a leader and a spokesperson in the area of promoting a new narrative of what midlife is like, and be someone to be seen as not an expert, but someone that they can call on, because I suppose they've got a wealth of knowledge, and the knowledge that I've gained over the last 2 years has been immense. So I can't imagine what it'd be like in 10 years' time. So yeah, maybe that one. I also want to travel. I can't wait. I love, love, love travel. So I really hope that in 10 years' time, traveling again to different parts of the world, different parts of Australia, experiencing new things, it's so important, I think, for us to have that. Also, I'd love to volunteer in organisations and things that are really close to my heart. So maybe spending more time volunteering, that's something that I'd love to do. Anyway, Emma, that was a tricky one to end on, but thank you so much for that question. All right, ladies, that is all I've got for today's episode. Again, thanks for listening and supporting the show. I'm so very, very thankful for you. Next week, I've got a very special friend of mine who is going to share my 100th episode with me. And she's been a mentor to me for a number of years, and she has been a mentor that's become a friend, which is very, very special indeed. So I'd love you to join us for that special episode. And until then, take care. Bye.